elementary class size staffing with Mr. Easton and Dr. Walker.
Good evening. I'm Frank Easton, Executive Director of School Improvement and Administration.
Caroline Walker, Director of Curricular Programs.
The Howard County Public School System is committed to delivering high-quality instruction across all of its schools. It ensures that each elementary classroom size has a class size that supports academic performance of all of its students. In order to align to the approved FY17 budget, an increase in class size by a single student in grades 1 through 5 would take advantage of existing vacancies and preserve all existing teachers on staff while maintaining the high-quality teaching and learning in our elementary classrooms. Pre-kindergarten and kindergarten staffing would continue at the current classroom teacher-to-student ratio. Over the past several years, our class size has remained fairly constant. In 2014, our average class sizes ranged from 19.8 in grade 2 to 24.6 in grade 4 and 5. And in school year 15-16, they ranged from 19.8 in grade 2 to 25.3 in grades 3 and 4. In order to minimize the impact to staff, human resources, and school administration, we need time to staff schools before the beginning of the 2016-17 school year. Administrative directors will work with each impacted principal to determine how the ratio changes will alter the proposed use of staffing allocations that were determined in March. Teachers would be informed of assignments so that they would know where and what they will be teaching as soon as possible. And throughout the summer, the Office of School Administration will work closely with principals and human resources to adjust staffing as needed. It is recommended that the classroom teacher-to-student ratio be raised from 1 to 19 to 1 to 20 in grades 1 and 2, and from 1 to 25 to 1 to 26 in grades 3 through 5. And again, pre-kindergarten and kindergarten staffing ratios would not be changed, and this will retain all current teachers.
Any questions? Oh, so sorry. Wake up, everybody. Mrs. DeLacy.
Yes. Yes. Now, if we don't raise class size, we'd have to lay off staff? Is that what I hear you say?
No, with this class size adjustment, we would be able to retain all current teachers.
I'm saying that if we do not do this.
If we do not do this, we do not believe that we will be able to get to the budget number that we need to for fiscal year 2017.
So let me get a definitive statement. Yes or no? If we stay where we are right now, can we still retain the staff that we currently have? Because somebody has already called me saying that a teacher at one school where her grandson attends was crying because she said that she was going to lose a paraeducator and due to the budget cuts. So I don't want any lawyer talk. Sorry, lawyers. But I need to know, yes or no. Is this something that we have to do or not?
We have not made staffing allocations due to the budget decisions that we have to make. But currently, there could be teachers and paras surplus based on the enrollments. But
attrition?
Yeah.
We would not hire in certain positions?
Right.
Thank
Mrs.
you.
French. Okay.
This is heartbreaking for all of us. And I know that a number of teachers may lose their favored position of being a fourth grade teacher. And they may have to go to a different school, or they may have to go to second grade. But they will have a job. And that's what I keep telling myself, that the people are more important, and we also have to show good faith that we are trying to conserve or save money within the budget in order to come as close as we can to the negotiated agreement. Whether or not we could get there, I don't know. But if we do not affect class size, then we won't have the money to, we've been put in a very ugly position by the funding authorities. And what's new? I mean, they always pass the ugly stuff to us so that everybody can yell at us and say it's our fault. But I do know that past elected officials definitely supported our decreasing of class size. And so I'm very disappointed that we're being forced to do this.
We are as well.
I'm really bothered by the upper range recommendation for third, fourth, and fifth grade to go to 31. That bothers me, but because along the same 20 years that I've been on the board, that we have been forced to downsize the physical square footage of our classrooms. And yet we have rightfully included more students with their paras, with the one-on-one helpers. And so there are some, I mean, I've been at 9 SCHs this month, and I have lived or actually seen the smaller classrooms and how I don't know, it's just very unfortunate. I'm sorry, you feel the same way.
It is, and I would like to say that certainly we would opt not to make these changes and adjustments as well. But I would like to point out that given our current staffing ratio, that if we look at the school year 2015 and 16, that we remained well below our upper limit with a class size ranging from 25.3 in grades 3 and 4 and also 24.8 in grade 5. So while we do have that upper limit, we have been able to staff our schools well below that. And if there were any circumstances where there was a room size that was not able to accommodate a particular number of students, we would be able to work with the principal to adjust, add staffing that we would need to from our pool in extenuating circumstances, but that would be on a case-by-case basis.
But I thought you said in a previous budget meeting that last year you increased the size only on the high school level.
That is.
And this is the first time for the elementary school level. So we really can't look at past data for elementary, right? I mean,
Well, just given the ratio that we've used, we have been below
right, but that's
the upper
not
range,
going
so
to
we
last.
haven't gotten there. So it will move, it will certainly increase. The average class size, we do expect to increase, but we still believe that we're going to be below the upper range recommendations.
I hope so, because 31 is really tough.
And in some classrooms, we do obviously come close to that because these are averages, but we really do work to not, to staff our classrooms in a way that we can maintain academic and instructional integrity.
Dr. Siddiqui?
Well, yeah, what does upper range recommendation mean? Does it mean that they can go above and beyond what's recommended?
On this recommendation, on the upper range recommendation, we would not have a classroom that would extend beyond that.
So you wouldn't have a classroom that extends beyond 31, so why doesn't it say upper range limit versus recommendation?
Occasionally, in the past, and not necessarily about this one, and we could say that it is a limit, we could make that decision. In the past, there have been situations where it's gone above that for a particular reason across multiple classrooms. So in a school that didn't have capacity to have another room, there's been a decision made temporarily, so which is why it's always been called a range and a recommendation in case there's an extenuating circumstance, but it's rare. I mean, we can tell you which schools they were and why, because we know that over years.
And what about I mean, we haven't done anything like this since I've been on the board, so I think probably when was the last time we increased class size?
Well, last year we.
I know for high school, I'm talking
yes,
about elementary. So
yes.
is that what Mrs. French was talking about?
Right, right.
Yeah, I'm sure Dr. Altwer will talk to the extent of, the research that talks about, the importance of keeping class size small in terms of the academic progress that our children can make in a smaller class size.
Well, but you have the choice of raising class size or laying off teachers. Your new ones, your, non-tenured teachers would be the first ones to go.
Well, is there other places this could come out of the budget?
Okay.
It's a question I have to ask,
Is that, do you want that answered?
No.
Okay, I was just saying. All right, Dr. Altwerger.
Well, I'll try not to stay on my soapbox too long. However, you're right, Dr. Siddiqui, that the research shows that one of the most important factors in making sure children have a good education is class size. This, to me, crosses my bottom line. I cannot live with increasing even one child because teachers, it's not as if it's easy right now, so one more is making it not so bad. It's that they're at their limit. Some teachers in some schools are at the limit right now. We're talking about Title I schools. Where are the most overcrowded classrooms?
Not in Title I. No, not in Title I. No.
Okay, we have some schools that are, not crowded, and we have other schools, they may not be Title I, but that are very crowded. And that the teachers, they're bursting at the seams right now. We have some classrooms where teachers are dealing with a lot of IEPs and 504s and all kinds of other things. And especially for those of us who are concerned about equity, this is an across-the-board situation that I think cannot be tolerated. These upper ranges are just not acceptable at all. I'm glad that we're keeping kindergarten at the level which was already too high, but we're going higher in every other grade. And I think it's totally unacceptable. And I also don't accept the either-or kind of argument that either we raise the class size or we have to lay off teachers or staff, because there are other kinds of options available to meet the budget requirement. And to me, as a board, I think that we need to take a hard line when it comes to class size, knowing how important it is, both to our staff and to the students, in providing the kind of education we're used to providing in Howard County. And I'm really not talking to you, but I'm talking to my colleagues.
But I would say that we certainly agree, and in the superintendent's proposed budget and in your proposed budget, there was not a recommendation for increasing class size, because we wholeheartedly stand behind the class sizes that we've been able to maintain in Howard County for quite some time. And I would also say that in some of the circumstances that you're speaking of with students with IEPs and other needs, that we often think of a classroom being one teacher and a specific number of students. But in many of those classrooms, in addition to the classroom teacher, there's also additional paraeducators, there's ESOL assistants.
Which also shrunk.
And special educators, as well as support teachers who are in there supporting. So in those classrooms with students with significant instructional needs, there is most often additional staff in that classroom as well.
So we do reporting actually about staff to student ratio in schools, and it's very different than what we say for class size. So by and large at elementary, we have a 1 to 10 reporting sort of place around our staff to student ratio at our elementary schools. So while this is a piece of it, we do also need to consider what Mr. Eastern said, which is that there are many other people in there that actually do that. We were trying to find comparable class sizes and that sort of information. And that was one of the things that were drawn to our attention, is that it's not just the classroom teacher when looking at what's in a building.
Well, I guess I've made myself clear of where I stand. This, to me, this is not something that we ought to be considering. I understand that you have to bring it forward, but I think that this would be the absolute last case scenario if we can't come up with something. We've already found some savings in fixed charges. Who knows where else we might be able to. I think we should hold the line with class size.
I would like to offer one more piece of information. As everyone knows, we're coming to the close of the school year. And this is of a real-time essence here, because we only have a week before teachers leave. And typically, we like to let teachers know what they're teaching and where they're teaching before they go home for summer break. And if any adjustments are made to class size, all of the master schedules for each of our schools are going to need to be rebuilt. And that rebuilding of the master schedules involve more than just the 12-month administrators who are in the building. They involve the team leaders and the ITLs and the counselors and all of those folks. And so if there were to be an adjustment later, it would put a great burden on our schools to be ready to open by next school year because of the adjustments that would have a domino effect with our classrooms.
Well, that has more to do with the upper range recommendation, actually, than even the average class size, because the upper range determines whether another teacher has to be hired. And
But we typically, yes, but we typically do not want to move teachers once the school year begins. And the later
Right,
we
I
begin the
understand.
staffing process, the more likelihood that more teachers would need, that those numbers would be adjusted at the beginning of the school year. And we really avoid that situation.
I want to remind my colleagues that we also, at a previous board meeting, were informed that we had a certain number of prospective special, I think it was special ed students, without a concurrent addition of special ed staff. So we are already talking about a very stressful situation that would only make things worse. So I'll stop there.
Mrs. Valencourt?
Well, just it's 7:30, it's time to start. Our next thing. I'm going to be voting against it, and I know that that's going to, the obvious question is, well, what do you want to do instead? I think it's premature. I understand that it's going to create an issue, but we haven't finalized the rest of the budget yet, and we haven't looked at all of the other things we could cut. And if it's a question of, it's a shame that it's already June, whatever, 9th or 10th, that's just a colossal failure on our part to get this done in a timely way. And until we have already gone through the rest of the budget and made serious and difficult cuts and other programs, it's just not going to make the easy thing to do is just, well, let's just lob off the teachers and the class sizes, and it's premature in my view. I don't think we've done the other hard work yet. Thank you.
Miss Lynn?
Yes. I think we can all agree that lowering class sizes would be ideal, but given the budget situation, it may be a necessary evil. So I was just wondering how these new averages would compare to the averages of the state class sizes.
That was one of the places we tried to do some research where it got a little challenging, because actually across the state, the most comparable piece of information is actually not classroom teacher to child, but rather staff to child. Mm-hmm. And we still look fairly favorable compared to other counties, actually very favorable to some. But I can pull those comparability pieces, but they're not actually at this level, so it's very hard to tell.
Ms. Giles?
Sure. I mean, I know we all feel the same way, that this is not where we want to go. But I do take to heart the fact that we have to make some decisions now so that we can be understanding and supportive of our staff. And I do not want us to have to do this in November or something because we find that now we can't pay people's health care bills because we couldn't agree that this is one thing we can do, which we can adjust again if we have to. We don't have to get to these top ranges. I think that's the thing we have to keep in mind. These ranges are based on the children who actually show up at those schools. It's not like we're going to divide up all the children into chunks of 31 and then hire a new teacher. What we're going to do is see what comes into the schools at individual classroom levels and make decisions within that. And when we look historically at where we've been, we have not hit these top ranges. And so I'm going to take some comfort in the fact that I think that is a place that we are going to be able to continue because we're looking at an influx of students of around 1,200 kids. So I think as hard as it is to even contemplate, I think we do have to bite the bullet now and say this is something we can do where we know we can realize a certain amount of money, we can put the supports in place because we've got the time to do it, and that as Dr. Walker pointed out, we really do have in our schools with the highest intensity need, we have a ratio more of 10 to 1 when we talk about staffing to those students. And so we just need to continue to look at ways in which we can find places where we can take enough off that shows our commitment to the county council to actually make meaningful change. Because if what we do is delay things and say, okay, well, we're going to put off, because much of what we've been looking at is, okay, we'll put this off for a year, we'll put this off for a year, we'll put this off for a year. That means next year we're back here exactly where we are now, looking at even more painful cuts in order to accommodate it. So this is something that reaches at the base level and says, this is a commitment we're going to make, and we are going to commit to make it work. And we're going to do everything possible not to hit those top ranges because we recognize what that means, and to put complementary and supplementary staff where it works, and say this is what we have to do in order to do the planning to make the rest of the things work, which are going to impact many more levels within the system. I hate it. I can't tell you how much I hate it, but it's something that I don't see a way around. We have to make a significant change that makes an impact that is not just temporary, that makes an impact that we can continue to support the staff that we have in the system and make sure that we put them all to appropriate use and that we give them the courtesy of a notice of what this is going to look like and make sure that our administrators can prepare for what next year looks like. I think that this is something we have to do. And we have never before faced a deficit on the order of $50 million. We have never faced a deficit on the order of more than 5 to 7. And I am greatly encouraged by the fact that we're going to get some money back probably on rebates on prescriptions, but that only represents 10% of the money we need to find some way to recover. And there are not many places to find it. Because there aren't places, Dr. Altwerger, in other parts of the budget, the places we have to find money are with people. Okay. That's where our biggest commitment is, because it also impacts the health fund, and it impacts the retirement, and it impacts the Social Security. It has the largest parts, and this is the least painful thing that I think we can do.
Thank you, Mrs. Giles. Okay, I just wanted to ask, because I agree with everything that Ellen said for the most part, but I wanted to summarize it in like a couple just different things. This is just, if it's almost, we could almost look at it as a precautionary measure. There doesn't have to be 19 kids or 24 kids in the class size, right? I mean, this is almost precautionary. If we don't do this, we could be in bigger trouble down the line, is my question. If we don't do this now, could we be in bigger trouble in September?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
If we do not staff our buildings right now, it is going to be very difficult to begin the school year. We would have students who begin the year with one teacher, and within a month, potentially, they could have another teacher.
That's a big problem, I think.
And we really try to avoid that at all levels. but especially in elementary.
Okay, thank you. That was basically my question. I hate to do this too, but that was basically what I needed to hear. Mrs. French, you're lit up again.
Well, I hear Dr. Altwerger saying this is only 1.6 million.
We just
But-
saved 8 million.
No, but they already included 5 million in the budget that we adopted. They knew about this. The president of HART talked to me at the retirement dinner about how we would like the recommendation that's coming because it will be a cost savings. So they've known about it. I don't think we can count that as new money. The thing is that what this will do is prevent us losing our non-tenured teachers.
Yeah.
And we have invested a great deal of time, energy, love in those brand-new teachers, and I don't want to lose them. And so if this is a guarantee to keep them here, then that's why I'm willing to go with this, because to me, people are important, and I want them to have job security. I want them to know it now.
In addition to that, Ms. French, I would like to add that every day that we delay in filling our vacant positions, the best teachers are being hired in other counties.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Easton. Ms. Giles?
Yeah, I'd like to move, I wouldn't like to move. I'm willing to move that we adopt this recommendation for elementary class size staffing.
Second.
Okay, I think we're ready, Mrs. Hanks.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Giles and a second by Ms. DeLacy. Ms. DeLacy?
Unfortunately, yes.
Ms. Valencourt?
No?
Ms. Lynn?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Giles?
Yes.
Dr. Altwerger?
No, and it's also a no in losing staff. We find this money elsewhere.
Mrs. French?
As Debbie Kendig, God bless her, used to say, I will hold my nose while saying yes.
I remember Debbie.
And Dr.
God bless her.
Siddiqui?
And I can't do what I wouldn't do for my own kids, so no.
Motion passes 5-3.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.